Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم. Alhamdulillah, that was the recitation of the 17th and 18th ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah. Summun bukmun umyun fahum la yarji'un is a very famous ayah. Very, very famous. A lot of children know it as well. And today, I want to bring the ayah to your attention, and I want you to be really familiar with it. The Quran, for the first time now, is going to give an example. Mathalahum is an example. What is it going to typify and what is it going to exemplify? Well, the previous ayah was أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى فما ربحت تجارتهم وما كانوا مهتدين. That having described the munafiqeen, the mufsideen, the hypocrites, the people who are two-faced, the people who mock others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala groups them together and say that these are people who traded guidance for misguidance. And then categorically declares that it was a profitless transaction. But now he's going to give an example of what that means. Now, when we give an example of something, we use similes and metaphors. They can be positive and they can be negative. For example, he was as radiant as the sun. Or, he was as nice as you can imagine, for example. Or you could say his character is as dark as night. It can be positive or negative. The Quran gives examples for a very important reason. The Quran is not merely an instruction manual, for human beings. Step 1, insert screw A into B. Step 2, it's not like an IKEA flat pack. It's an allama al-Quran, it's a teacher. It's there to teach. What a teacher does is ensures that the student is following what the text is or what the lesson is. And the best teachers will give examples. Let me take you back. Some of you are too young for this, but let me take you back to your GCSE days. The first time you see the quadratic formula, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been more than 2 decades since I visited this, it's x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Correct? When you first see that, you can be a little bit alarmed by it. But what the teacher will do is draw a triangle, ABC, plug it in, and before you know it, that complex formula all of a sudden becomes something that's not only easy to follow and use, but helps you figure things out. So it's the examples that make complex things straightforward or understandable. And that's why the Quranic Kareem gives examples and states this is an example. Mathaluhum. Even in Urdu, misal or mithal is like an example. I want to start just by reading the straight translation from one of the regularly used sources, just for you to understand there's something odd in the structure of this translation, and it's the correct translation. Their example is that of someone who kindles a fire, someone who kindles a fire, but when it lights up all around them, Allah takes away their light, leaving them in complete darkness, unable to see. So it begins with one person, and then in the middle it switches to many people. Okay? So keep that in mind, and we're now going to go through this in some detail to understand, to make sure that we understand it. It's the first example of the Holy Quran. There are 2 in a row. 2 examples are going to come in a row. This is the first one. It's about those people who are the munafiqeen. If this was the absolute complete example, the ayah would have read mathaluhum alladhi istawqada nara. But in between mathaluhum and alladhi is kamathali. Ka mathali. Mathali is almost a repetition of mathaluhum. It's again to say this is an example, this is an example. It's one of those things to make you aware that don't forget this example. Ka in itself is enough to give an example, but the kamathali adds distance between mathaluhum and what the example will be to indicate to you that there will be more pieces to this puzzle, more detail will be added to this in the subsequent chapters, but make sure you understand this foundation. For any building to be solid, the foundation has to be strong. So you must understand this example so that when additional things are added, you've got a reference point. Okay? So, مَثَلُهُمْ كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي اسْتَوْقَدَ نَارًا. The example is like the one person, someone who was trying to light a fire. Trying to light a fire. If إِذْتَوْقَدَ نَارًا means someone is trying. If the phrase had come أَوْقَدَ نَارًا, it would mean that the fire was lit already. Okay? So if you're trying to light a fire, in your minds, I'm just painting the picture today, we're going to reflect on this more tomorrow. I just want to get the picture across today. When would you light a fire? The example is one of darkness. Okay, so you're in the dark. It's a dark desert. That's where the scene is set. Now, in modern times, you don't really experience true darkness because you've always got something with you. Even if the lights go off at home, you'll press a button on your phone, you'll get some light, right? But for those of you who have experienced true darkness, so for example, if you've been on holiday to Pakistan and all of a sudden the electricity goes off completely and you're walking in the street and you get, that's real darkness, there's a fear, there's a natural fear because you just don't know what's around. So this is true pitch black darkness. And in there is someone who's trying to light a fire. Imagine the urgency of the situation. What do you have in the desert? You have dangerous animals, snakes, scorpions. There are animals howling. The animals of the night are hungry, fierce creatures. So that there's an urgency to try to light this fire. And then, فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ. Then when that fire all of a sudden becomes a large fire and it lights up, مَا حَوْلَهُ means that it's so bright, this one person that was trying to light the fire has lit something that's so bright that ma hawlahu means even the surroundings have now been lit up. So as far as you can see now, all you can see is light. So the scene of utter darkness, layers of darkness, shrouded in darkness have now suddenly become very bright. And not only can you see what's in front of you, you can also see all the way around you. Where else does the phrase ma hawlahu come in the Holy Quran? Give me one example. Subhanalladhi asra bi abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi baraknahu hawlahu. It means surrounding. So for example, in that ayah, it's talking about Masjid al-Aqsa is not only holy, but the surroundings are also holy. So here, the hawlahu is relating to the whole surrounding is now bright. So imagine that picture from pitch black to pure brightness. And this was the work of who? One person. Now immediately, in fact, I just want to reflect on one word here as well. فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ. Da'at is another word for light. There are two key words for light in Arabic. One is da'u, which is here, ada'at, and the second is nur. Nur you've heard more commonly. There's a contradistinction between da'at and nur, between da'u and nur. Nur is light and da'u is heat and light. Okay? So they're saying that there's heat coming from this area and there's also light. The heat is a protection. If you're in a cold, freezing desert at night and you don't have any heat source, you're going to very quickly enter a dangerous zone. But the heat is now keeping you warm. The heat also repels dangerous animals. So not only have you now got brightness and light everywhere, as far as you can see, but you've also got protection. All the work of one person. فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ. ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ means Allah takes away their light. Okay? So now, up to this point, the ayah had you focused on one person. Now all of a sudden it's like a pan out, zoom out, and now all of a sudden in that scene there's lots of people and Allah has taken away their light. They're referring to those people, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الضَّلَالَةَ بِالْهُدَىٰ, the people who had exchanged their guidance for misguidance. Now, if the phrase was idhab, idhab means that Allah has taken it away transiently and temporarily. For example, the day and the night, so when it becomes night tonight, the day comes back tomorrow, that's an idhab act. Dhahab Allahu means a permanent act. So that light has been taken away from them permanently. Dhahab Allahu bi nurihim. Now, what was taken away? Bi nurihim. Not bi bida'atihim. Not the daw. Here, both words in the ayah for light are used, daw and nur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the second phrase, nur, to show that these people are now already so far from the source of the light that the heat is not even impacting them, which is quite beautiful. Because in normal speech, you normally say, right, I've given him iPhone, I'm taking the iPhone away. You wouldn't use two different things. Whereas that Quran is being very, very specific and explaining how far they are. وَتَرَكَهُمْ, leaving them inside zulumat. Zulumat means darkness. La yubsirun, so that they are not able to see. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken their light away and put them in darkness, the zulumat is so dark that it's darkness upon darkness upon darkness that they're in. Okay? So this is the ayah, just a canvas that I want to paint today. The reflections will happen tomorrow. Let's just make sure we've got this. A dark scene, a dangerous scene, very dark. Someone's trying to light the light. It's lit up and it's beautiful. It's bright, it's protective, it's got heat and it's got light as far as one can see. Then for some people, for there, Allah takes their light away and puts them in darkness. Now if someone's in darkness, now they can't see, can they? Summun bukmun umyun is the following phrase, right? Correct? Sheikh? Correct? Summun bukmun umyun. What would you expect the Quran to say immediately next? Summun bukmun umyun, the options are they're blind, deaf and dumb. What do you think would come first following that ayah? Would you say blindness, deafness or the inability to speak? What would be natural? Blindness. Why? Because it's gone completely dark. So the natural the natural word to come next is they're being made blind, correct? The Quran doesn't choose that word. The Quranic Kareem, Summum says deafness. Now why on earth, having painted this scene of going from pure dark to pure light to pure dark, would deafness come in? This is remarkable. When you're in danger, and it's pitch black and it's dark at night, the natural human instinct, what happens, your eyes don't sharpen up very much. There are two types of cells in the eye, rods and cones. The rods have very poor ability to pick up light, so after a little bit they adjust and you can see things, just about make things out. But what really sharpens is your ears. Small sounds, a creak at night becomes something really alarming. What was that? Is somebody outside? Somebody on the window? You get scared. Your hearing becomes really, really alert. But Allah says for these people, summum, I take the hearing away. Do you see how beautiful that is? Umyun, their speech is taken away. So even if they're screaming, help, 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 where's that light gone? You know, we were safe a minute ago, where's it gone? Their speech is no longer heard. They enter an abyss. Fahum summum bukmun umyun, and they become blind. This blindness, because now we're relating to the human being. The hearing is gone, the hearing has gone, the speech has gone, and now their eyes have become blind. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done here so beautifully is He said, the light that was outside has gone, and the light that is inside has gone as well. What a warning. What a beautiful example to exemplify what happens when you trade guidance for misguidance. Summum, bukmun, umyun, فَهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ, and they will not return. So this is a really sharp, stark warning that Allah gives for the munafiqeen. It's quite a beautiful example, isn't it, when you really reflect on it. So I hope that picture is clear, and inshallah tomorrow we'll revisit it slightly before we move on to the second example. So just so you know the context, because it's important to know where we're going. The first example is this kind of absolutism, where there are these strong type of munafiq, where they're just put into an abyss and darkness, and Allah takes even their ability, their sensory capabilities away. And then the second example is also about the munafiqeen, but it's less absolute. And that illustrates that there's a spectrum of people. Once we complete the second example, the third ruku will complete, and then the topic will completely change. Are we clear? Following? Yeah? Okay. Jazakallah khair. We'll stop there for today. Wa ma alayna illa al-balagh.